Ayo, be that one to lead us through darkness. See that sunshine on our daughters and sons on the front line. Something's gotta be done now. It's our time.
Good morning, ladies. How you doing?
Good morning.
Great to see your faces. So, episode number 7. Today, we're dedicating it to principles in light of October being Principles Month. We're kind of connecting this, episode 4, 5, 6. We've been talking about 2021 school year, which of course seems like it's been just an extension of the 1920 school year, right? And we talked to teachers, we talked to kiddos, and so it was exciting to be able to listen and speak to some of our leaders. And we had the opportunity and honor to catch up with some principals in our lives, including Mayra Cruz, who has just announced one of the 10 National Blue Ribbon Principles for Outstanding Leadership. Man, tingles, goosebumps, just listening to her and just her sense of optimism and her leadership. So this passion and dedication and just resiliency, like creativity and innovation, just truly inspiring. The challenges they face as leaders during this time are just really unlike no other. And so that vision, that strategic planning, the flexibility, the compassion, man, it was this fuel that my soul needed. And it reignited this sense of hope for the future, knowing that they are leading schools, they are in the lives and truly embodying what Be That One's all about, right? Clear sense of gift and purpose, and serving as that one in the lives of so many of our kids and family, staff, teachers, as well as their colleagues. So yeah, let's get started in terms of like theme that I kind of was identifying just even from talking to kids and talking to the teachers is this need for connection, this need for relationship and really focusing on that social emotional learning piece and this grace and we're human, we're going to make mistakes, we don't have all the answers, and we're going to all collectively work together to, get through this.
First of all, we have 3 queens that we interviewed. I was like, these women are amazing. They also all have an extremely calm demeanor. Like you're talking to them and it feels like they should be therapists, right? Like you're sitting there and I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm coming in my Zen space right now. And so it might be a quality of principles. I don't know, but these 3 women are definitely special. I appreciated the also from a leader perspective, a leader of a school, honing into making sure that the students' emotional space is right and that their teachers' emotional space is right. Mayra said in the interview, I asked, how did you prepare for this? Because you saw what happened in the spring. There was really no way to prepare in the spring. But in the summer, you had some time to actually prepare. And, even then, in a very calm way, she was like,
in the summer, a lot of honestly, it was, sometimes I just had to take a breather and realize that I couldn't plan. Because until the city made a call, until the district made a call, I was living and planning with the coaches, with the assistant principals, with the director of operations at my school. And we were planning all these different plans based on possible scenarios. And we just said, we need to focus on what's important right now. What we know is that whatever way, shape, or form we go back, there's going to be a virtual component. So what we can control right now is getting our systems virtually under control, right? So one of the last things we did before the faculty is that each grade level nominated 1 faculty member to serve on the teacher think tank. And they helped us figure out the new tools because Canvas was being rolled out to us as a district. They helped us figure out what Canvas and our interface would look like, helped us play around with Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams has been just, breakout rooms came and then the lobby came, like all these new systems were coming every 2 weeks. So we were just learning how to do them.
That's a skill. That's a full-blown leader skill to be able to see, kind of try to foresee, right? Try to plan for what may or may not take place, but at the same time being very comfortable that they're not in control and they can't be in control of everything. And I think to be able to hold that skill right now is probably why they're so chill, because I think I've had the opportunity to, in a non-professional setting, interact also with these ladies, and their energy is fire all the time, right? Like they're just great people to be around with, and they're contagious. And then to also see them in this space where they're just, level-headed. And to your point, Abby, right? This is why the quality, I think, of the leaders we interviewed this week stands out. And I think also why they stand out, to your point, is because they're thinking of the whole, right? What makes their community and what makes their system kind of move together, with thinking of the well-being of those teachers, of other staff members. I know when I spoke to Cynthia, she also kind of just talked about whoever's there, right? Their other support staff, right? Their service officers, and also the ladies who are cleaning the facility, right? So it's a lot of checking in with people to see how they're doing and what they need. And I know that creativity is coming into place. I know that with working with Cynthia, she says, I connect with people with food, right? I feed people. I know that we all like food, we all need it. And so that's my way of that's my love language. She said, and for me, not being able to do that during these times, if it means that I'm going to drop off a hotspot to one of our teachers, or whatever it is that can make it easier for you, I'm trying to listen to what those needs are. And I think that's all we can really do. And I think maybe this is why we're feeling so hopeful, because of the type of leaders that we have, in front of our schools.
Yeah, I look at it like what's really dope about them, as well as leaders just across the country, is that they're looking at the macro level, right? You got to look at like, what is this big picture here, and then what are all of the micro level cosms, right? Because there's all these details. You can have guidelines and frameworks, but then at the end of the day, how do we take that, and then how do we figure out how we're going to implement that? What systems, what processes, what flow charts, whose role is what, and that communication piece, that's also crucial. So these leaders are basically looking at macro, looking at macro, looking at the micro, and then identifying, which is a great gift of these leaders too, is identifying who are my key leaders, because I can't do it all. Like there's no way that this one principal can do it all. So it's who's going to go ahead and take that lead, and finding out what their gifts and their talents are, putting those people in place, empowering them, and basically streamlining that across the board to then communicate to the entire community, which is amazing.
Yeah. And not only identify, but also trust, right? Like trust that they will do what they need to do, because you do need to focus on the macro level stuff, right? So, I asked the question to Mayra about what needs to happen in order for her to feel safe going back to school or opening her school.
Everybody's risk level is different, and everybody's health situation in their homes are different, right? And now that we're reopening somewhat in very small pockets across the district for term 2, I don't think I necessarily want to talk about like the little things we need, right? Like plexiglass and, hand sanitizer and masks. Like, I think that, I think most people can agree on what the min and the max should be. What I want to talk about is process. Because in a moment like right now, collaborative, transparent process is what's going to make the most difference for communities to feel safe. Mm-hmm. And I think that parents need to be at the table. I think that teachers need to be at the table. School leaders should be at the table. Elected officials should be at the table, and central office, district office folks should be at the table. And along with, whoever is directing CDC or the health department in your city. It needs time to develop. And the all stakeholders need timelines on when to expect certain things. And because when people feel rushed, I think that's when we make mistakes as human beings. Mm. And beyond our titles, all of us are humans, and we're going to make mistakes. But if we have multiple people looking at it, it feels like a calm process with clear deadlines, written guidance, policy. More people will start to feel ready. And we also have to acknowledge that some people are not ready. and families deserve that choice. And if then people got to make choices. If 70% of the families say we rather stay online, how do we make sure that 70% of the funding of the resources actually going to the majority of them, while also doing it fair, safe way for the 30% that want to come? And I think that's what's hard, right? But I think that if we really are thinking around equity, I think it has to be equity of voice, and the most equitable thing you could do for all stakeholders is just to not rush it, to have a process, to have timelines, and to make sure that the implementers of the work, the school leaders, the teachers, feel like they've had a voice, and feel like they are ready. Because if the adults are not emotionally ready, we're not going to do anyone justice when we go back anyway.
Basically, like if you think about it, instructional level, emotional level, facilities, operations level, right? Parent engagement. So it's being able to kind of triage all of these different components together that all really make up the school, right? Fiscal level, to be able to go ahead and effectively, keep up with all of the updates, keep up with all of the transitions, because like even Mayra and Cynthia as well as Camille were all saying, it's like, how do we plan for the unknown? How do we plan for the consistent changes, as well as we've been noticing kind of like different levels of who feels safe coming back, who doesn't feel safe coming back, based off of the upticks in the virus period as well. So being able to be like that one step ahead, but also having that grace for all of them, knowing that, hey, we're all getting this information at the same time y'all are getting this information, so we might be one step ahead, and we got to be okay with that. It's all good.
Yeah, and I also appreciated the innovation in like making sure that the student voice was present. Camilla also talked about this. Important to her and to Mayra was to make sure that the students are having fun, and what that fun actually, right, and bringing joy to the students.
At the end of last year, we were so tired. I was like, we're just gonna have Joy Week, right? Like normally we have field trips, and we have a lot of international programming at my school. So the 8th graders were supposed to go to Costa Rica. The 7th graders were supposed to do their Spain exchange. And we're like, we need to bring some joy. So we had Joy Week at the end, right? With a virtual field day and all of these different things. And the students wrote more days like Joy Week, or Joy Week was the best, because they just miss like the social fun interaction. So then we took that and we created Joy Time. So every Wednesday from 2:30 to 3:30, depending on the grade, we have Joy Time. They have it every day. Every week. And it might be watching a movie together. It might be creating a puzzle together, virtual games, all cooking the same recipes. We were celebrating Latinx history this week, so some people were making guacamole.
How incredible that thinking is, because, if you're like an executive, if you're running a business, you're thinking of a productivity, and joy may not necessarily equate to productivity in a business sense, but in this sense, when you're dealing with humans, like the joy aspect, as we know, and we're learning more and more, is actually does lead to more productivity. Absolutely. So it makes sense. It brings the kids back. It excites them, and that's why they return time and time again.
I know. I think definitely, right. We keep on going back to, even when we were talking to like our teachers about making those connections with kids, that it doesn't have to be what they think academic, right? Learning takes place in so many different ways. And like, for instance, like Cynthia was saying, when I go in and virtually observe classrooms, that her favorite time to go observe classrooms is the beginning of class, because they always start with something kind of just way to connect with kids, something about their day. And then kids are kind of just rambling on about whatever, they liked, or their weekend, or something they have at home. And it's a time and space where they're being heard, they're being seen, and there's no pressure for what they think that how they need to be performing. So again, I think if anything during this time, it's just so much more connecting in a very, very creative way, as much as possible.
Yeah. I mean, Camille was saying, first week, no academics, but really not even
Yeah.
just first week, but continuous, it's not that focus on academics, it's that relationship, it's that connecting emotionally, because she was even saying that
the question is, are there students who still struggle, like whether teachers or students with like fully distance learning? And like the answer is yes. But I don't think it's so much like the access to technology or the use of technology. It's really that connection piece. Dr. White, she's a pediatrician. That's where I'm reading it. So I was in a plenary session and she was saying, when the students aren't logging on, it's really just, it's a symptom, right? So take it back to your SEL and take it back to relationships. Because one of the questions I remember now, one of the parents said, well, what if the kids don't want to like wake up and get dressed and brush their teeth? Like, how do you force them to? And then the doctor was like, well, don't think of it as like a punishment compliance thing. Think of it as a, what is my child going through kind of thing. And that's really where most of our kids are. At the beginning, we were trying to like set the expectation and really lean heavily on, let's make sure our cameras are on so we can connect. And then like over time, it was like, numbers dwindle. You can't really force the students to do it. Most of the students, I'd say about 60%, when we actually tallied it, said it was because their own self-perception of what they look like. So it's like, because it is a weird time. It's a weird time when you're a teenager, but like overall, it's really about connection. Like our student, it's really hard to get them to connect. Oftentimes our teachers are finding like, yeah, they're on, but like, they're idle, they're on mute, their screens are off. And like, there's a lot of reasons. Like if you're going through depression, and I'm not a clinician and I'm not trying to diagnose anybody, but if you're going through some times, you might not want to feel like getting up. There's a lot of things going on.
I asked Cynthia about also who else she's talking to, right? And she's telling me that she's spending a lot of her days and her time during the day. She's spending a lot of her time during the day just calling parents. Just, picking up the phone and connecting with them and saying, how are you doing? What do you need? And trying to find also creative ways to make sure that they're getting what they can, because they are a center that's open to be able to provide meals for families.
Well, I love the fact that they were all teachers at heart. You can so tell that these women, these queens, were truly like teachers at heart. I mean, Camille was the teacher at this school, became an AP, then became the principal. So she's, gone through all those different levels. And so, they're teachers at heart who truly believe in, that students are at the center. And what I love about them as leaders is they're truly servant leaders as well. Like they're so down to like roll their sleeves up and be like, I'm not, just because I'm the principal doesn't mean that I'm not going to have my list and just try to reach out. Cynthia was like, I give my cell phone number to all my students and to all my parents and whatnot. I mean, they do know that from 9 to 10, that's my time. It's my novella time.
She's like, I'm watching novella self-care.
That's part of my self-care. But the fact that they truly care about each and every individual, student, family, and teacher, at their core, they have that care. And that's what a true leader does, is that they're servanthood and, that they serve and that they truly care.
Yeah, I also heard Mayra say, having to take consideration for siblings, even in developing the schedule, assuming that some siblings are either part of the school, or even if they're going to a different school, right? How do you make sure that you're like carving in enough time so that they have time to eat, go pick up lunch if they're like getting lunch at the school, and then that they're just spending quality time with their siblings at the time, right?
The city has opened up food hubs across the city, but they have to travel to go get to them. So we couldn't have lunch being at different times for different hours, because some of our families have to get up, go get lunch, and come back. And it also is a nice break for siblings to be able to see each other and not complain that so-and-so is done and the other person isn't. So just to make it a little bit easier on families and a little bit more predictable on when kids need to eat.
I think one thing I want to bring up too also is, I know Camille talked about it as well, and maybe connecting it of like the way of asking for help too, right? They have also their support. Like Camille's talked about, like her mentor, and just, you're not leading on your own.
Yeah, all three of them, I felt like they all have this sense of they have people in their network, they have mentors, they have colleagues who they call upon, because everybody everybody has to accept the fact that we don't have all the answers and we don't know everything, and we're going to have to figure it out. And so for them to have a network just across the board. So for Camille, there's weekly meetings where it's all the principals together, and then she has her own mentor that she goes to for that support, kind of on that one-on-one piece. I think that the same thing with, just having that network of support, because you want to be able to have the answers, but you're not going to.
How do we love on them and inspire hope? How do we love on them and inspire hope? And like whatever's going on, this is not the picture of the best. Like, you know what I mean? Like, our leaders today are not what you want to aspire to be, in my humble opinion. So how do we inspire hope in our children? Like, it's super jacked.
What would you want to make sure that they know about the life and the struggles that, you as the principal are going through?
That we're all human and we're all trying. And, again, like, everyone's going through their own struggles. There's a lot going on in everybody's lives. And so just remaining human first.
I would love to be able to work under a leader like the three of them, because of the fact that they truly understand and they're empathetic of the teachers, they're empathetic of the families, they're empathetic of the students. They just have a clear understanding of all the different components, and then they're bringing it back together and saying, hey, we get it. Hey, we are a family. There is hope. We're going to look back one day and say, man, 2020. we got through it, and we can't shy away.
That's kind of like what Mayra said, right? Too, like, we are exactly what we're supposed to be, right? And I was just having this conversation with my husband yesterday about, like, man, this is so surreal. Like, whoever thought we were going to be parenting during a pandemic? He's like, no one thought there was going to be a pandemic in our lifetime, and here we are, right? And so, same thing with our educators and our leaders. Who thought they were going to be leading a school education in these times, and they're doing it. And maybe this is where we're supposed to be, to see what we make with this moment.
Yeah. I thought it was funny how Mayra said on the first day of school, she was so nervous, because what is a principal's job in doing this virtually, right? Like, I imagine principals walking around the schools and checking in on the teachers and maybe doing some computer work, but virtually, right? Like, what is your role as you're seeing your teachers get on, their devices with their students, and how do you manage that from afar? And so I thought it was like, also, she talked about how humbling the experience is to, have her cafecito ready, have her computer logged on, and she's like, what do I do? And it just goes to, and they've all three of them mentioned it, like, you don't have all the answers, and you know that, and you're just kind of rolling with the information that you do have.
We had a virtual term one goodie bags for all our students that had little things like a little tigre, because we imagined that they would be a little camera shy, because we hadn't done live instruction yet. Windmills for the first graders, so they could practice their deep breathing and the windmill move.
That's awesome.
They have, their tile boards with magnets and cardboards to learn how to blend and learn how to read, all the way up to the sixth graders having their novels, and different things that they would need. We also, the science teachers were amazing. They anticipated the labs for the first 9 weeks of school and put lab kits in there. So we're still doing labs, and they have all of their materials. So it was a lot of different ways of doing it. But one of the things that I said was, I just need everybody in their lane doing their job really well. Like, and as long as direct, operations was in the lane, communications was in the lane, tech was in the lane, instruction was in the lane, student and family engagement was in the lane, and we were all communicating, I knew that we could pull it off.
The gifts, that she had given to the students, man, that one with the windmill, where she's like, practice your breathing, little kiddos, and breathe, and like the windmill turns. It's like just that creativity, and for her to think of that macro level, and then to think about those little things that it's like, that's what the kiddos can use to help them get through the day, that will bring them the joy, that makes them think that, and know that we care. That was just, that resonated with me.
And she mentioned also the little tigre stuffed animal, right? The tiger stuffed animal, that because she knew or they knew that the students would be scared to be on camera. So it was a way for them to like hold on to something while they, were logging on. So I definitely very special.
Yeah, I mean, I look at also something that Camille was sharing, as well as some other principals are sharing. It's the progress that they had made in 1920, right before Friday the 13th, March 13th, right? That progress that they had all been making. She was even sharing, like, hey, we were showing our community, we were showing people who didn't think our Black and brown students could achieve at certain levels that they can, that they're progressing, they're making this momentum, we're beating the school on the hill, and then boom, it hits. And so then you have this feeling of like, oh my goodness, how do we keep our students motivated? How can we show them and keep this momentum going? And I really do think that that's where all that creativity came in.
Absolutely. Like that's right. March 13th, no one's going to ever forget that day. And March 13th will never be the same after March 13, 2020. And to have like Cynthia's kids, middle school kids, who were taking those community college courses and finish them, transition to be able to finish them online in 8th grade. Same thing with Mayra's kids, right? 40 8th graders passing the AP Spanish language test. People hear AP Spanish language as, okay, it's a language that people speak, they're comfortable. 8th graders, scoring a 4 or higher when 5 is a max. That is fantastic. And so in the midst of all this craziness and all this frustration and all this uncertainty, I think our leaders are doing such a great job in highlighting and pushing their teachers and pushing their kids and their families to a way like we're going to be okay. I'm not sure how it's going to end up, but we're going to be okay. And I think that they really are the light and hope that we need during these times at schools. So I'm very thankful for them. It's Principals Month. I know we talk about our educators, so I just want to say thank you to our leaders. Thank you for stepping up. Thank you for sharing your time and for being empathetic and for being a good listening ear, because it's more than ever that we need you and you're showing up. So thank you.
What I wish for this school year for the school community that I serve above all is that we stay healthy. And that we are able to take care of ourselves physically, emotionally, and that we remember that our school values can still live within our homes. And really, our school values are our home values. And that our kids are learning, everyone's going to be okay, no one is behind, everyone is exactly where they should be, and that what I keep saying is like, we can't swim under it. We can't get under the covers. We can't fly over it. We're just going to have to go through it. And as long as we put one foot in front of the other, we will get out of this somehow. It feels never ending. But if you keep walking, there will be a moment where we can look back and say, we got through that.
My hope is just, this is also a struggle, because it's like, how do you maintain high expectations but still be real, right? And just like seeing, and hearing about the challenges of that our families and of our students, like some of our students have gotten COVID, right? So it's like, my hope is that, and excuse if I'm gonna get a little bit political, my hope is that we come away from this election process. So number one, that our students and our families are more informed and more involved, and when possible, that they use their voice to vote, and that they are more civically engaged. That's one. Number two is, after becoming more involved, whatever the outcome may be, that we can come together and find some closure and definitely some healing.
Thank you for joining us on Be That One. We are always here to serve with you, for you, and to provide a space to share, to inspire, motivate, build others up to do the same. Remember to click to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on IG at BeThatOne_podcast, on Twitter at BeThat1podcast, and comment with any feedback and input. Feel free to email us on bethatone.podcast with any topics you want to discuss and questions you may have for us. So until next time, this is Christine,
Erica,
And this is Sappy.